a forgotten corner of Long Island, where the sea whispers secrets to those who dare listen, lies the gateway to mysteries that challenge the very fabric of reality. Here, hidden from the prying eyes of the world, a shadowy project sought to unravel time, bend minds, and pierce the veil between dimensions. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the abandoned radar tower, the air thrums with the echoes of the past, whispers of experiments so bizarre, they seem conjured from the depths of imagination. But the line between fiction and reality is thin, frayed by the hands that dared to manipulate it. In this tale of ambition and secrecy, where science blurs into the paranormal, we explore the legacy of Montauk, an odyssey through time, a dance with shadows where every discovery peels back a layer, revealing not just the darkness at the heart of Montauk, but the darkness within us all. The truth, as they say, is stranger than fiction, and as the moon casts its pale light over Montauk, illuminating the forgotten corners of its history, we embark on a journey to uncover what lies beneath, to seek answers to questions unasked, to find light in the darkest of places.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast. My name is Nick, and with me, as always, is the Kiff Bert.
Kiff.
K-I-F.
I used to fight in Call of Duty on a map called Kiev, I think. Was it Kiev?
No, probably Kiev.
Oh, I think it was Kiev.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't spell Kevin.
Place.
They couldn't spell Kevin.
Kevin.
Kiff.
Yeah, Kiff's an easy one.
Okay.
Just means
Yes.
you're excellent. Excellent.
Totally righteous, bro. You're excellent, man. Whoa.
Oh, yeah, I think this is the second episode in a row I got you to do that.
Yeah, I know. That's outstanding. Totally gnarly,
reminds me
dude.
Stranger Things, Surfer Boy Pizza.
Oh yeah, that is valid. I didn't even think of that. I always try to imitate the turtle from Little Nemo.
Yeah, and drive your kids crazy, I think you said.
Yes, that's my favorite thing to do.
The best thing
That's
to
the
do
only
is
use
start
for
a comedy bit and do it for hours and hours until everyone's real tired of it.
For sure, 100%. In fact, I just heard a joke. I'm going to share it with all of our listeners.
Whoa.
I'm going to share it with all the listeners. This here is a Deceptive Reality Podcast exclusive. We need like a banner that says exclusive right there. Anyway, Nick, I'll give the joke to you, and then everyone out there in podcast land, y'all can use this. Compliments of old Bert.
Oh, yeah.
What has 5 toes and is not your foot, Nick?
Someone else's foot?
It is someone else's foot, Nick.
Oh, I got it. Yes. I am a genius.
Yes.
I am a genius.
He's so smart. It's this word games that we play, Nick. That's what it is.
Yeah, it increases our brain size.
Really does. Big brain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
Big
got one for
brain.
you. It's a riddle more than a joke.
Oh boy.
What's brown and sticky?
Brown and sticky. I got some answers. I'm not sure.
I can't contain my laughter. I love this joke.
I'm not sure, Nick. I'm kind of scared to give my answers.
You give up?
I give.
A stick.
Oh my gosh, Nick.
I love lame jokes so much.
All of mine was going to be PG-13, but they were like cutting that edge.
I know you were going there, but it's innocent. From me, you're going to get an innocent joke. Like, I don't tell any naughty jokes or anything like that.
Me too. I don't do the naughty thing. That's just wrong.
It's just because I don't have
Christian
the memory
podcast.
for it. No, we're not. Only 50%, I guess.
We're quality, reputable. What was it we used to say when what did I, a Jesus Minecraft server? What was it I used to say? Gosh dang it. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it was funny back then. It's not so funny now because it's a podcast. But this week is Nick's week. Listen, we got some, I get to lean back a little bit this week.
Oh, yeah.
I get to
I've
chill.
got a tale to tell that is unbelievable in the best sense of the word. Like, this is, it could be a movie. In fact, it probably inspired some.
I'm trying to think of all of them like that. And you said it wasn't on my channel, so it's not Robert the Doll.
No.
Well, that's awesome.
Gave you a hint in this episode already, and I don't think you remember what it was.
Kif?
Nope.
No. Yeah, I don't think I remember, Nick. Unless it's a stick.
Okay.
Is it a stick? Is it a snowman?
No, it's none of that stuff.
Well, this is where it always gets exciting. I know that the only reason that, and I wore the right shirt today for the YouTube people, because Nick said he had to double check what I do on my channel to make sure we've not covered. I'm like, it's a doggone ghost.
It's not a ghost.
It's got to be a demon. Demon, ghost. I only cover so many things. Shadow Mans.
Sometimes you do shorts that are varying topics, and that's where I had to dig through, because that's where I was concerned you would have put something, because that's happened before, if you remember.
It has.
You remember that? Yeah.
I like doing shorts, Nick, sometimes.
Yeah.
Our shorts, for anyone that doesn't know, if you're on the YouTube channel and you like shorts, you like little bonus materials, I don't make it to where our subscribers see it. I make it so you guys don't get inundated with like when I do shorts for us, I do 5 at a time, typically for 5 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever want to go see our shorts and you just want like a little snippet of what I call the hot points, if you go underneath our channel, there's a section called shorts, and you can look at all the shorts there.
Yeah, that's nice that you don't inundate our listeners. We don't want to make those beautiful, beautiful people angry.
No. The way I look at it is you guys only get notifications when it's a video.
Right.
Or if I screw up, which does happen.
Which could never happen. Could never happen.
It has happened because my mom, I think on Saturday I called her, or Sunday. I don't know. I put shorts out one of those days. And she was like, I saw you just put some shorts out. And I was like, or she said, I saw you just put a video out. And I'm like, no, I didn't. She goes, no, I just got notified. I'm like, no, I didn't. Then I thought, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did. We only do podcasts on Friday, Ma. Any other day I screwed up. But
so
hey, it happens.
There's a pro tip to be had from this. If you want a sneak preview of what might be coming up on Retraced Echoes, watch Deceptive Reality. You might accidentally get a preview of what's coming up.
You will. It's actually funny because I screwed up real bad on that one. I was because we use a program that creates our shorts for us. Thank God, because that takes 6 to 8 hours probably for one of our videos. Probably 6 to 8 hours just finding what to use and then clipping it out. And ain't no one got time for that. Listen, we're 2-man wrecking crews over here. We don't have time for all that. So yeah, when I put those out, I also do my channel on the same program. And occasionally, if I hit the wrong button, it throws it on our channel because I've got our channel set for that. So I'm like, yeah.
Free previews.
I did that one time. But hey, we got like 15 subscribers.
Yeah,
there's
it
like
worked out really well for us.
There are like 15 people going, where's all these ghost videos at?
That reminds me, we got to do more ghost videos again. We sort of stopped for a while.
Listen, things happen. We got things going on, Nick.
We get on kicks. Do you notice that? Like, one of us will do an episode and then we'll sort of riff off that kind of thing for a while. And
that's true.
Then we'll hit something else, or we'll hit an idea, and then all of a sudden we're all on that idea for a bit. So
I started creating my next one, Nick, and I can tell you it's nothing like anything we've done. Completely different.
Well, now that's something I've got to think about for at least a week. Great.
At least a week. So I'm dying to know, Nick, can we start this so I can hear what we're talking about?
Yeah, and you should know what I said earlier in this podcast when you hear this first segment, what I kind of hinted at.
Nick doing them doggone Easter eggs like I do.
Let's
see what it's about.
The year is 1942, and the United States has been drawn into the Second World War in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor. New ways to combat and defeat the juggernaut that is the Nazi war machine must be developed. The need for secrecy and research into unconventional warfare has never been greater in the nation's history. From this need was born Camp Hero and the Montauk Project. Picture this: a series of ugly, brutalist concrete structures meticulously decorated with fake siding and pretty windows, transforming it into a village of charming cottages. A complete imaginary downtown featuring a fake gym, bowling alley, and even a church with a steeple reaching into the skies. Unlike a regular coastal town, however, Camp Hero had no permanent residents. Just like North Korea's empty peace village of Kijongdong, Camp Hero was a cover for more nefarious activities. Despite being closed in 1981, Camp Hero's off-limit zones, shielded by chain link, silent alarms, and barbed wire, fuel an enduring fascination, allegedly concealing a maze-like subterranean laboratory. Join us as we investigate the stories of time travel, human experiments, extra-dimensional beings, and psychic warfare that inspired Netflix's hit Stranger Things and has earned Camp Hero the title of the East Coast's Area 51.
Okay, so listen. I didn't know what it was talking about until about 20 seconds in. And I'm like,
I was watching
this is
you
Stranger
closely.
Things.
Yeah, I was watching you closely. It's crazy because I'd heard about this before, and in preparation to do this, I read the entire book that this fellow put out on this. In fact, I've got you a copy of the book if you want it later.
Oh, snap, okay.
But as I read through it, if you have watched all of Stranger Things so far, you're going to know a lot of what's going on here, because it's almost like they just said, okay, I got to change this enough so they don't know I copied someone's homework.
Are you saying they're using ChatGPT over there, Nick? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. Well, no, because when Stranger Things came out, because it takes like 15 years per season, it probably actually was the 80s when Stranger Things started.
It really does feel that way. They're saying that this season's not coming out until the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
I know. It hurts to hear that.
It hurts so bad.
I love it, and I'm going to be sad when it's over, but I need closure.
We need closure at this point. Listen.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened last season. We can't go into it because there's some people that probably has not seen Stranger Things. I'm not going to ruin like I did 2 weeks ago. But those things were 20 years ago. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. I know people who haven't watched any Stranger Things yet. Can you imagine that?
My parents have not.
What? They'd love that.
I know.
I got to get my parents to watch it.
It's one of those things where if you're into sci-fi, like 1980s style stuff, I think you would like it. Though my parents are not big fans of anything that has like sexual exploitation in it or like edgy things.
Like I'm struggling to remember anything in Stranger Things that would be like
the only thing that I can think is the very beginning, season 1. There's like one scene with what's her face?
Nancy?
No. Though yes, because I think she did get dressed down a little bit.
Oh. It's been so long I don't even remember. Are you thinking about Winona Ryder?
Yes, that's who I'm thinking of. Yes.
Okay.
Because there's that one scene with her and the guy.
It makes me feel real old to think of Winona Ryder playing the mum now.
I know. How crazy is that? That's our life. Listen,
although
we're
it
just
made me
old
feel,
right now.
Yeah, we are. I'll tell you what made me feel real old is, and I love this guy, so I'm not dissing him in any way, but seeing modern day Johnny Depp in the trials and stuff like that. Yeah. I was like, I want to remember him as maximum Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
But also all those really young roles, like
true.
The poor guy's raggedy at this point.
He's definitely had a rough way to go is the best way I can put it. He's lived a hard life.
Yeah, for sure. And
He's
like
had
I
a
said,
lot
I
of things going on.
love his work. Think he's probably a cool guy.
Oh,
So
super
I'm not
cool guy.
dissing him, but you know, it's
You know-
not a good look for him.
I think I'm always shocked when I see people that I really liked or that I grew up watching or saw the movies of. And then I see them now and I'm like, God dang, they're old. And then I remember, wait, they're
I
about
know.
my age.
Wait, so aren't we? Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. And I go, oh man, that's really rough.
Yeah,
And then
this
I
is
look
the
at
part
him and
of.
I
I was
This is
just gonna
part
say
of
this
what?
is the part of deceptive reality where we cut to a commercial for Metamucil.
And Ben Gay.
Yeah, prunes, stewed prunes, all that stuff.
I have so many things of Ben Gay right now. I told Nick before we started, I twisted my neck and go all the way that way. It's this way. It's a little tricky. It's
Yeah,
tight over
hopefully nothing happens over there.
there. Whew. Yeah, no doubt. Something happens over there. I need to keep looking back, make sure my alien's still there. My mom's been looking at my alien in the background.
Yeah, it's gonna get lifted anytime now.
It's going to get lifted. She got sticky fingers.
But back off the tangent a little bit. So do you already know about the Montauk Project?
I know a little bit. I've not looked into it a ton. I did watch something on it 2 months ago.
Mm.
I think it was 2 months ago. And the guy that was going over it, I kind of zoned out because he was a little boring.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, listen, I'll come back to this. And I never went back to it. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah, like
a
an
shame,
hour
'cause this is twisty and turny. This is not like the opposite of boring, I'm telling you.
well, his was an hour long, and the
Yeah.
first 15 minutes, I could not hang on. I couldn't tell you what I listened to in the 10 minutes before that, and I'm like, I'm not getting anything out of this. So I was like, I'll come back to this when I can concentrate.
I tried to play it cool, but this episode's been in preparation for a while because
Mhm.
I don't have a ton of time, so it takes me a long time to read a whole book.
For sure.
So we were in the other episode and you said something about, do you know the story about this thing with time travel? And I'm like, nope. Because remember you were describing something and
That's what we're doing next week.
yep. But it's not this.
No.
So yeah, so okay, go ahead.
It's funny because the time travel thing, I just listened to all the Art Bell episodes that guy was in this weekend while I was editing our podcast.
I know we say this all the time, but I love Art Bell.
Oh man. I didn't know how he died.
I still don't know that.
He had a drug overdose.
Oh, you're kidding me.
But do you know it was prescribed medications? But do you know what's odd
Oh.
about that?
What is? What?
It's odd because before that, he had conversations that he was retiring because people were shooting outside of his house on a regular basis now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I find it
That's
odd.
suspicious.
There's probably nothing to it, but the more I was like, man, this is an Art Bell episode. We need to figure out what
Man.
happened to Art Bell.
Yeah, we kind of do, because that is odd. And like right before retirement and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Like if you've seen any movies with, was it the Lethal Weapon movies?
Yes.
You gotta know that you gotta play it extra safe right before your retirement.
You have to. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like if someone told me, hey, we're going to give you a radio station and a whole bunch of people's going to listen to you, and all you have to do is what Art Bell did, I'd be like, sign me up.
Yeah, exactly.
I would totally do that.
I don't think the reality of it is how I pictured it, but I always pictured Art Bell was out in the middle of the desert
Mm-hmm.
in this isolated camper trailer.
That would be
And-
dope. Yeah.
He did it out of that, and there's like coyotes outside. I don't know, desert things, and as far as you can look, it's just desert. And somehow
Well,
he
he had
does the
that.
whole show from there.
Well, he called it something like that, didn't he? Didn't he have a series
the
of
High
them he
Desert
called?
or something like that.
Yeah, the High Desert. Yeah,
Yeah, but I think he was in a town in a desert.
he was.
Yeah,
He
I was
was.
picturing it
Yeah.
just like real nut in the middle of the desert, which is cool.
That would be kind of cool. I would totally love to do that. We have the capabilities to take call-ins, as they put it.
Yeah.
That might be fun to do that one day.
Yeah, that would be fun. We'd have to like make sure people want to talk to us first.
Oh, for
But-
sure. And it have to be
Yeah.
the Art Bell rules. No
Yeah.
cussing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And only one caller a night.
Yeah.
That's his
Yeah.
2 rules.
And you've got to
Only
talk for a
2.
long time.
Yes. He had the most interesting stories, though. The one I was listening to
Mhm.
for the preparation next week, I was laughing because some woman called up and she was torqued off.
Oh.
She's like, I
Oh.
can't believe you got this guy on the radio. This guy is going to teach people how to do this, then they're going to die, and then this is going to be on your hands. And Art Bell's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm like, oh, this is getting juicy. I don't remember
Yeah.
this.
He's not having it.
He was not having it. I think I only listened to, there's three different interviews with this guy, and I had a tough time finding the second one, but I found it.
Hmm.
So should be interesting. Yeah, I know a little bit about this one, Nick. I don't know a ton about it. I just know that it's similar in a lot of regards to Stranger Things.
Yeah.
There's obviously a correlation. And on top of that, I know that Stranger Things goes really far left. Actually, I've been looking at Stranger Things shirts here lately,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one that shows a person walking like in a park,
Mhm.
and then there's like the ground, and then there's a Demogorgon that's on the other side, and it says "trapped on the upside down," and I'm like, I want that shirt.
That sounds awesome. I wish you
Oh,
would
such
have
a cool
like
shirt.
randomly got it for tonight. That would have been great.
I know. I was gonna buy it too, but I'm like, when am I gonna wear a Demogorgon shirt?
I gotta do subliminal messaging to you. Like 3 weeks before I do an episode, I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, and I was walking in the park, Demogorgon." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Subliminal,
or
man.
like cough, cough, Demogorgon. Kind of.
I will like to say, last week I gave you a cheat sheet. I've got no cheat
Yeah.
sheet today, Nick.
No, I ain't that kind.
Nick,
There's gonna be some science in this, but it's spread amongst story. This episode's about storytelling.
hey,
and there's
that's
gonna be
cool. These are my favorite
long
ones. They're
segments.
storytelling.
Yeah, this is really like a cohesive story. Like there's that thing where you know in good storytelling you say this and therefore this and therefore this
Yes.
and that kind of thing. This happens almost like if it was planned. But the crazy thing is no one knew about it for the longest time. And they wouldn't have if there weren't for some specific circumstances. And I'd like you to hear those circumstances, but I want to go for one thing that I think is real crazy. I would have loved to have seen Camp Hero back in the day, because I get this real weird picture in my head that there's these, the narration is said brutalist cement structures. So imagine, monolithic cement structures, really ugly, imposing, but they've done like that painting that's called like trompe-l'oeil, which is like paintings that trick the eye, and they make it look just like a, like a coastal village. There's a lighthouse. There's all this stuff. But then if you were to walk up close to it, you're like, wow, this is not this at all. That would have been something. And
Oh, for sure.
it worked. It worked.
I mean, listen, when we look at all the stories we tell, I feel like they all have that atmosphere where it's like, I would have loved to have visited when this story occurred at least once.
Yeah.
Almost
Or
every
even
one of
have
our stories.
decent pictures.
Right. Like Hopkinsville. I would have loved
Oh,
to have
yeah.
had decent pictures of that.
Yeah. We've
And
got
Shag
one
Harbor.
terrible picture. Oh, I could get you
Yeah.
pictures of that, but not from back in the day.
That's what I mean.
Actually,
from back
maybe
in the
I
day.
can. Maybe I can, because that's where my grandmother lived most of her life in that area. So
Oh,
maybe
which
I can.
reminds me, I believe my episode from my podcast is coming out. Well, it'll be 3 weeks ago from this video that's coming out.
Mhm.
Guess where that's taking place?
Somewhere in Canada.
I believe Nova Scotia.
Oh, I am interested. Can you tell me more, or is it still a secret?
Oh, I mean, this podcast is going to come out like way after this.
Okay.
It's on a lady, and this story is one that I've been interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those where I'm like, man, I don't know if that really happened.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like all of our stories take that tone.
Yeah.
For
Well,
being a
I
black-
mean, we look at the topic we're covering. Like, is it
Right.
real? Is it not? Like, we can't be certain.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, in every single occasion, listen, there's always, you're either skeptical of it or it flat out happened. One of the
Yeah.
two.
Like, this is a
But it's a
mystery
lady-
podcast. We're not talking about lemurs. We know lemurs
Exactly.
exist. Like, you know.
Exactly. Duh. It's Esther Cox and the Great Amherst Poltergeist case.
This is one of the most famous hauntings that has ever existed. Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
do
what I'm
know
doing
this
on this.
really well.
Oh man, I know who to hit up for some facts then.
Yes, I know it really well. In fact, I got stranded in that town for probably about 6 hours in the middle of the night before cell phones were a thing. So,
Oh, man.
before cell phones were common. So,
Supposedly, this thing wrote on like the walls and stuff.
oh, it done a ton of things, and it was in newspapers all over the world.
Yeah, I'm super fascinated. I didn't know the story very well. I knew of it, but I'm like, man, that sounds too far fetched. But then I started because I was like, I really like doing these podcasts on hauntings versus
Right.
haunted locations because it's more fun to tell the story.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like my beginning people that listen is probably like, this son of a gun, he's talking about these cool locations. Now he switched to people. I'm like, I'm sorry. Listen, I like stories. But I'm like, man, this story is so good though. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. As soon as I did, I'm like, man, this is in Nick's land.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, there's a lot of stuff that happened in Amherst that you probably found in course of investigating this.
Yep. Crazy.
Actually, I think I can see it from here. I've got the first book that this was ever published in. It's a book called
What?
Blue Nose Ghosts by Helen Crichton.
That's crazy.
Very famous book. It was probably one of the first books about this topic that I was ever read. And it was read to me by my cousin who liked to scare the crap out of me.
Yeah.
So he'd read me from this book called Blue Nose Ghosts. Because Helen Crichton was a folklorist that traveled around the Maritimes and gathered information about like witches and ghosts and forerunners and all that kind of stuff. So I'm so
That's
excited for
crazy.
your episode now.
Yeah. That one, as soon as I saw where, because I didn't know where it took place. I knew it took place not in the United States. And I'm like, let me do a little research. And when I start researching, I'm like, this is Canada land. This is where Nick
Yep.
is at.
Yeah, it's
And I
not
think
that
it's not
far.
very far from you.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not. It's really not. So if you need
I'm
help,
excited.
let me know. But I imagine you're probably done already.
No, I'm about halfway. I've got about half of it done. So,
All right. If you
But I
need
gotta
any
get it
local
done
color,
quick.
let me know.
well, and it's literally a case where I'm like, I probably need to get at least half of it done because I need to do ours for next week. I've not even started that one yet. So,
Right.
but back to our Stranger Things, people's probably like, stop talking about your stupid old podcast. We're talking about Demogorgons and now you switched off. I'm sorry. Listen, happens.
It's all related. It's all related.
I got sidetracked. It's easy for me to do.
Speaking of Demogorgons, so Stranger Things is basically 85% this story that we're going to listen to.
Mhm.
And then the rest is Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So-
I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. So,
Do you know about the Satanic Panic?
no.
Oh, man. Could do a whole lot. Actually, I wanted to do an episode on that, but the subject matter gets real dark, so I was.
Well, it's got satanic in the name, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, it's worse than that. But what happened to Eddie Munson in the most recent season, where like everyone hates him and they blame him for all these supernatural and horrible events?
Mhm.
That was going all over Canada and the US in the 80s. Like, there were people convinced that there were over 3 million Satanists in the US, and they were going to just roll into town and start abducting kids. Like, it's
Wow.
wild. You gotta look up on that sometime.
Yeah, that's crazy sounding.
Yeah, but that was a big chunk of the most recent season. They were persecuting him because of that.
Mhm.
And Dungeons and Dragons, which they play in Stranger
They do
Things,
play
was
it.
looked at like one of the devil's tools. So,
That's one of the first opening scenes, is it not? They're like
Mhm.
playing it or something? Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
I think that's the opening scene.
All the bad guys, like the Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, Vecna, they're all character or monsters from Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I did not know that. Oh,
Yep.
You know what? That would make sense, though.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Stranger Things, guys, just like, I don't know if you remember that old song, I have an apple, I have a pen. And it's like, apple pen, they just stuck them together. That's
Yeah.
Stranger Things just did this story and Dungeons and Dragons, and that's it.
I mean, smart for them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Smart
Yeah,
on
I
them,
know.
hey. They thought of something no one else thought of.
Oh, they did. Well, they thought of something that was already out there and just put a clock on it and resold it. But I'm a big fan,
Correct.
so I'm not dissing them. They did a smart thing. But I feel like they didn't really get into the background of the laboratory and these experiments.
Hawkins
way-
Lab.
Yep, the way that this story does. Because there's a lot of background on this.
Touche.
Are you interested in learning more?
You doggone right. I want to go to Hawkins Lab.
Yeah, let's go to Hawkins Lab. But before all the evil happened.
There we go. That's perfect. Let's go.
The staff. At the start of World War II, military intelligence had uncovered evidence that Germany was devoting massive amounts of time and funding into a previously unknown area of research known as extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional quantum physics. If true, this new science was terrifying and had immeasurable consequences for the entire world. The government took the threat seriously. Indeed, the foundation of Camp Hero was allegedly a response to this looming threat. One well-documented fact is that towards the end of World War II, U.S. intelligence embarked on an aggressive program to recruit as many German scientists as possible before they fell into the hands of the Soviet Union. This was known as Operation Paperclip, where over 1,500 captured German scientists were secretly hired and shipped to the U.S. to work on a wide range of top-secret government projects. One of the most famous scientists smuggled out of Germany was in fact Werner von Braun, the head architect of Germany's lethal V-2 rocket program, who would later design the Saturn V rocket that propelled the Apollo missions to the moon. What is less documented is that the intelligence department may have started this recruitment and sometimes coercion campaign during the war, weakening Germany's ability to research this terrifying science while strengthening ours. After scouting many locations, the U.S. military found that something at Camp Hero's exact coordinates would be the most favorable for conducting research into extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional quantum physics. While the surface was under the supervision of the military, the horrifying and sometimes brutal experiments in the labs below allegedly often mirrored the experiments these Nazi scientists were conducting under the German government. The fear of the new research supposedly leading to the government turning a blind eye to the unethical methods used below. It is claimed that Albert Einstein himself secretly supervised some of these experiments. According to some, these studies did not end after the war.
All right. So that's something like where Hawkins Lab and stuff came into. I don't think they covered that a lot in Stranger Things. But had you heard of Operation Paperclip before?
No.
Okay. Well, that's an actual true documented thing. That all the scientists that they captured after World War II, 1,500 of them or more, they brought to the US and put them to work under special scientific projects in exchange for immunity.
Mm-hmm.
And Werner von Braun, the one that they mentioned there, have you heard that name before?
No.
So Werner von Braun was basically fairly responsible for us getting to the fake moon.
Perfect. I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. So that's documented fact. That's real. I'm sure if anyone's seen some of our other episodes, you'll know why I said the F word in front of the moon.
Yes.
So
people.
We really profited from importing these 1,500 pretty evil people into the country. But
There's always a but.
What's alleged is we didn't wait till the war was over. What they alleged is while the war was going on, we were so afraid, and when I say we, I mean, the powers that be. They were really afraid of this research that they were doing it because they had spies and they were finding out that the Germans and Hitler were pumping massive amounts of resources and money into this research. And that's stuff that could have better gone to actually fighting a war. So they figured there's something to this. And they were getting claims from scientists that they were contacting and stuff, that they were really making headway in extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional quantum physics, like piercing the veil between these realities and stuff. So they kidnapped these scientists right out from these labs, is what people say, and said, you're going to work at this facility. And if you don't, well, I hope you've lived quite a while. It's pretty good. You're done.
You're donezo. Dun.
Now, this is the part, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on this, because despite problems, I think most of us look at the government in US and Canada as mostly good. Like we'd say, no, you think they're bad? Okay.
Yeah. I don't think they're good.
I don't think they're necessarily evil bad guys. But they basically said, we want you to make the progress you're making in Germany labs on US soil. Anything that happens below ground at this facility, you're supervising yourself. We don't want to know what your methods are. We just want to know your results. So they had military above ground, making sure no one came near, pretending to be villagers in this fake village, going to the movies, going to the church, that kind of thing. But below ground, where these guys couldn't leave, they were like, you run your experiments exactly like you were at home. And that is pretty evil, I think.
Pretty much, yeah. I think, and by when we was talking about evil earlier, I guess my standpoint is not necessarily evil, but more so extremely, how do I put this in a nice way? Corrupt.
Okay. Yeah.
I would go with corruption, and I would go with bait and switch.
Right. Do you think our governments are capable, like, let's imagine it's World War II. Do you think our governments were capable of doing the same things that the Axis were doing? Like, would we stoop to those levels?
We would, but under a different guise.
National security probably is one that comes up a lot.
Well, here's the thing. And I think it's funny because myself and a guy that I know was just having this conversation the other day. It's like, and you and I've had this conversation to a degree, but on different subjects. You're told one thing your entire life, and it's not until you start really kind of looking around that you go, wait a second, why did we do that? Like a prime example, right? Probably one of the greatest speeches of all time about going to the moon came from JFK.
Right.
It's not that we go to the moon because it's easy. We go to the moon because it's hard.
Right.
No, we went to the moon because Russia was going there first.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, let's be honest, right? Let's be a buck.
But that speech was fantastic. That would have got me riled up.
Fantastic speech. He's an absolute great speaker. But my point is, we don't do anything unless there's a benefit to us.
Right.
But a lot of times along the way, I think that we embellish the truth or we completely straight fabricate it.
Right. Is there any limit to what we do to achieve a goal? Like, is there any point where we're like, we have a good goal in mind, but we will not cross this line?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I wonder about that too.
No one would ever hear about it.
Right. Well,
and there's a lot of stories
unless
of
something like this
crazy
happens.
Things. Correct. Yeah, that's my thing. It's like, I mean, let's be honest. I've heard rumors that within the US we use alien spacecrafts or genetic re-engineered version of alien spacecraft. Now, some of what we see, they believe is, so it's like, to have that means that we've had that. We just didn't cross engineer one day based on looking up in the sky and go, we could make that.
Yeah, really, right?
So it's like, okay, well, let's think about this for just a second. If they had it, they've been lying to us this whole entire time, but then it makes me question, why is things getting released in bits and pieces now?
Right.
And I think it's because we live in a day and age where it's a whole lot harder to go, yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing. So it's like, let's sprinkle it in a little bit here and there. And then it won't be a huge shock when things come to be.
Yeah. And we're in an age where it's a lot harder to keep a secret. Like,
oh, for sure.
There was a time you could put something on a computer and there was just literally no chance of anyone ever finding it there unless they sat down in front of it.
Correct.
But now everything's connected. Everything. Like, I've heard there's something at the CIA, and I don't know if this is true or not, where if you take your cell phone in, it will put your contacts and all kinds of information from your cell phone up on a big display screen. So that you know when you're entering the building that you are monitored. Someone can correct me. That's what I've heard. I'm
never going into the CIA building with my cell phone.
Yeah, I think they want you to turn it in when you go there. But I don't know why people would go there. Like, the average person doesn't have any business there, would they?
I wouldn't think so.
No, I wouldn't think so either.
I've had moments where I've talked to people that are within those kinds of organizations. And if you ever want to see me sweat, let me talk to one of those kind of people.
Yeah.
And they're always so nice. They're always such nice people. And then I go, but I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, nope.
Well, they're masters of deception. They're going to seem like they're great on the surface, but you don't know what they're doing at work.
For sure. They're deceptive.
Like, not my current job, but in the past, I've, not anything big, but feel like I've had to compromise my personal morals at work, do things that I wouldn't do in the normal world. And I'm not talking big crimes or anything like that. I'm just talking about, telling a fib or something like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's business in general. Any business that says they've never done that, they're a liar. There's deceptive practices that happen all the time.
Oh, right? Yeah, for sure. We've got specific policies of transparency that if we don't do them, we get in trouble. But I can't speak for the whole company. Like, And I'm specifically saying that so everyone knows that the company I work for is fantastic. But
Yeah.
I guess I've worked for some not so fantastic companies. And and I never, no matter how long I did that, I never got to the point where I'm like, wow, this is fine. I was always like, every time I had to do that, not good.
It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest. I started out in the auto industry in the late 90s.
Right.
And in the late 90s, honestly, is like the wild west of the automotive industry.
Mm.
Like it was a lot more complex than it is now. And it was a whole lot easier to manipulate things. But the reason that I think I did so well in that industry was not because I was a great salesperson, but I was a straight shooter. It's
Right.
like, well, where'd you guys get this car from? And I think the common core answer back then was, man, this little old lady, she traded it in. She used to go to church in every single Sunday. It's only got 55,000 miles. I would be like, listen, we bought it in an auction. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it. I don't know. I don't know where we got it. I don't know if it's mechanically inclined. I know it runs good around the lot. Or if I knew there was problems, like sometimes you'll have like an oil leak or something. I'd be like, listen, there's an oil leak somewhere. I don't know where it's at. I can see oil on the ground occasionally. And I actually learned that from another guy that had been doing it for a long time. He used to own a car lot. Super cool guy. Art.
I thought you were going to say Art Bell. I was like, what?
No. He had what was his name? Doesn't matter. Rod Bell.
Oh, okay.
They had the same last name. But I learned the industry from him, and he was already old when he taught me. But he was basically like, listen, you don't sell every car when the person's there, but they remember the truths that you tell.
Right.
So for the first few months, man, it was rough because I was being honest on everything. And, I'd sell like 10 or 12 cars, which,
right.
It wasn't.
That sounds
really
like a lot to me, but
it's a lot. You've got 30 days though. So,
right.
But what I found was those people that I wouldn't necessarily sell, they'd come back and they'd be like, well, what about this car? And it was just because they knew that I wasn't going to lie to them or manipulate them.
Yeah.
For me, it was, listen, you're going to buy or you're not. You got the money for it or you don't. You can get finance for it or you can't. It's,
right.
There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
Just don't waste my time. I won't waste yours. Don't waste mine. That's what I care about.
You know what I think is very smart about that as well, like telling the truth about those kind of things, is because you got to look at it long term. When I've had a good experience with a dealer, I might have bought that one car from them. And if he told me there was some problem with it and then that problem arose, I'd get it fixed and that's fine. And next time I need a car, I'd come to him because I know he's going to tell me what's the truth about it. Now,
right.
I could buy the same car from the same guy and he doesn't tell me the truth. And maybe it's something minor. Maybe, I don't know, one of the wipers doesn't work or something. And I get it home and I find it out without him telling me that. I'm going to feel cheated. Even though the situation is exactly the same. I'm going to feel cheated and I'm not going to come back there next time.
Correct. And I think that's what makes it so, and then in that industry, I think everyone was like, to make it work, you got to be really crooked. And it's like, no, like I did well in that industry. I didn't have any issues. I started out as a sales rep and left as a GM when I left that industry. I was a general manager with, a lot of employees at a multi-million-dollar car lot. Like it wasn't a small deal, but it's like, I don't know. I didn't do anything special. I was just honest about everything, but I didn't like saying I was honest just because it's like weird, right? Yeah. It's like if you go to a car lot and their name is Honest Al's Car Lot, probably don't buy there.
Yeah. If you have to tell me you're honest, I don't.
Right.
Like I'm worried about that.
Yeah. There's something wrong with it.
But
right there.
Along those same lines, both of us have met people who would show up on a job, lie through their teeth, do things, nefarious things because it's their job. Think nothing of it. It doesn't bother their conscience at all. And they go home.
Right.
And that's that. And the world has a lot of these kind of people. I'd say almost more of these people.
Oh, for sure.
And these are the kind of people who would be running projects like Camp Hero. Like, they're like,
Right.
okay, 50 people are going to die, but 1,000 will live because of that. Acceptable loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel bad about it. I'm serving my country. If we look back to Germany, how many people said their only defense was I was following orders? Like,
Yeah.
some serious atrocities, and maybe these people wouldn't have done it on their own, but where they're bowing to authority, people will do some crazy things. They did studies on this.
For sure.
Like, have you ever heard of that experiment where they put someone in a room and they say every time you press this button, it delivers an electrical shock to someone in the other room that you're not going to see. You'll only hear it or whatever. And people were like, I'm not going to do that. But when someone comes in the room that they felt had authority, most people would press that button even to the point that they thought it could kill the other person because they were instructed to do it. These are regular everyday people.
Correct.
So after that whole roundabout we took, like, this is how I can believe that there's a lab that's got unmonitored evil scientists in it underground where we only care about the results.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that we probably have that now somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, in recent history, and I know I've talked about this before, residential schools in Canada and the US, that was just about as evil as it gets.
Right.
Right under our noses.
No one really knows what happens because, well, I guess if you have a mind like mine where you're like, no one would ever do that.
Right.
But then you remember not everyone has the same moral compass. You know what I'm saying?
I kind of have a mental problem
about
that. Like, sometimes I'm like, no one would do that. And I'm fooled because I am proven wrong a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I mean, think about cold cases, like when you look at, true crime channels. Like, I listen to that and I go, what has to happen for you to turn into that person?
Right. I think for some people, it's a much smaller gap than we'd like to think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it just comes from corruption. I mean, which, again, what we're talking about is some of that corruption.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to get into, if it's guilty or innocent, but, that last case where that guy was put in jail for killing his wife and his kid here in the States. What was his name? Starts with an M. There's an entire documentary on it. Can't believe I can't remember that guy's name. Anyway, if you go back and you watch the videos, you're like, clearly he did it, and I think his son had something to do with it. And it's like, how do you do that to someone that you've shared your entire life with and your child?
That is something I can't even fathom when I watch these crime things. Like, I can't, like, I'm not a parent, but I can't even imagine it. Like, I'd run into a burning building for a kid. Like, and I'm not even a parent, right?
Not think twice about it.
Yeah.
The guy's name was like Alex Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh.
Oh, okay.
That's it. But his was money and corruption.
Yeah.
Exactly what it was. He had already had a ton of corruption in that city already. Like, his son was driving a boat intoxicated. There was a girl that was on that boat.
My goodness, I know this story. I've watched a lot about it.
Yes.
Yeah. That whole family was bad.
Oh, yeah. I think he killed his wife. I think he killed the housekeeper. I think he killed his other son. Because here's the thing. When he got there, someone had video I can't remember if it's him or his son, where they was talking to the wife.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear the wife in the background. And then like 15 minutes later, he's like, we just got here and they're dead. You idiot.
Yeah.
You have a video where you were there.
Right.
They're talking to you.
And that particular family, like they were trying to act like people were out to get them from this town and stuff like that because of the original crime.
The boat incident.
But I'm not buying that for a second, because every town has this family that is like untouchable, or they feel like they're untouchable, and they bully everyone and all this kind of stuff. That I didn't buy any of their story, not even a bit of it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you look at the wife and the kid, one was shot with a shotgun, another one was shot with a rifle. You're telling me that somebody heard, if you shoot a shotgun, you know it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you shoot a Armalite rifle, you know it.
Yeah.
There's no way that you're going to hear that and then you're not going to acknowledge, which means these shots had to happen in very quick succession, which again tells me that I think it was him and I think it was his son. I think it was his son that had the cell phone video or something of Alex himself, and I think the mom in the background. You could hear it.
They were at like a kennel or something like that at the time, weren't they, or something like that? Yeah, I do remember this.
Yes. So it's like, you know, when you're dealing, and to think that a human brain can get that far down, it's like, man. But then the case like what we're talking about here, it's like, it's the same kind of conditioning.
Yeah.
It literally is.
Oh,
Same type of conditioning.
Sure is.
But I think you almost have to be a psychopath at that point. Like you have to not have feelings to do that. Like my biggest fear in life is ever not being able to help somebody that's like really in a time of need, or I accidentally cause something to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I'm always like super observant when I'm driving. Like,
oh yeah, me too.
I'm going to run in front of the car.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the people that's like, man, you know, Americans just go around and shoot their guns off. And I don't.
Yeah. I can't picture you doing that.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I know where that bullet's going to end up within reason. I mean, there's ricochet effect and stuff like that, but I know roughly the direction that a bullet's going to go before I fire the bullet.
Oh yeah. And know exactly what you're firing at. Like some people will fire into a bush or that kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's there's more people with more thoughts and less morals than you can ever imagine. Right?
There really is.
Because there's this saying that I always like, and it's kind of like it's kind of corny, but there's only two ways to exist on this terrestrial ball: with a clear conscience or none at all. Have you ever heard that before?
No, but that is very valid. It's very true.
Yeah, there's only two ways you can get by: clear conscience or no conscience at all. But one other thing I wanted to cover is, do you think that killing, let's say, killing a stranger is ever justified?
Yes.
What about killing an innocent stranger?
No.
What if killing an innocent stranger would save two also innocent strangers?
Depends on the scenario.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the Trolley Experiment?
Yes.
So, do you mind if I ask you what your opinion on it is?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So, Trolley Experiment, for anyone who's not familiar, is there's a trolley on a track. And if you do nothing, if you don't interfere, the trolley is going to go down the right track and it's going to run over two people and kill them. If you do interfere, it goes on another track and kills one person. However, in that case, you're a murderer. What one would you choose?
Personally, me would be the one person.
Yeah. Me too.
Me personally.
Yep, me too.
And like when you ask, is it justified to kill a stranger?
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at that is, if I'm willing to take someone's life, it's justified. There's a reason for it. You know, I always tell, you know, there's a great saying that the locks on my house is not for my protection. The locks on my house is for your protection.
I've heard that. That's funny.
Because unfortunately, here in the good old United States of America, a lot of people own firearms.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come into mine and I think you're endangering myself or my children, it doesn't matter what I've got on the other side of that door, you're not going to like it.
Right. Now, the law would support you in America, right?
Not necessarily.
No.
It depends.
If someone breaks into my house here and they fall down my stairs while they're robbing me and break their leg, they can still go after me in court.
Yes.
That's crazy.
They can here in the States.
Oh, I thought you guys had. I know some states though have like stand your ground laws, your castle or whatever it's called.
They do, but let's use, for example, someone comes into my house, right? Let's say I don't have firearms in my house, but let's say I have a knife.
Yeah.
Let's say I stab them, but they live.
Right.
I'm accountable for that.
Oh, okay.
If I stab them and they die, I'm fine.
Really?
Yeah, because
that presents an interesting dilemma there.
Well, here's what happens. If you kill them, they cannot pursue you in a court of law because they're dead.
What about their families? Are they able to or no?
They've tried it, and it depends on the state. I've seen cases where it's one. Like a prime example, there was a family, this wasn't that long ago, it was 10 years ago.
Right.
I forget what state it was in too. A guy broke into a house with a firearm, threatened to kill somebody.
Right.
I think it was the wife in the household. Was stealing stuff out of the house. On the way out of the house, he had turned around and lifted the gun, and then the husband charged and killed him with a knife.
Oh, okay.
But at multiple times he had pointed a firearm at the wife. In a court of law, the family went back in and said, you killed a father, you killed somebody's son, you killed, someone. They was just on hard times.
Right.
And they was basically reduced to the point of doing this. They didn't have any other choice, and they won. They won.
It's rough, man. Like, everything they said in court could be true, but does it justify them doing that? And like, they took on those risks also, so.
Well, and I think what most people's argument is the cost of replacing your TV, the cost of taking a life.
Yeah.
And my theory is you made that choice when you came into my house.
Right.
Is getting a TV worth risking your life?
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the point I was just making. Like, they took on those risks.
Yeah.
Like,
you acquired that risk.
Yeah.
You signed on the dotted line.
Like, if I go on a roller coaster, I'm saying that I'm okay if my seatbelt fails and I go flying off a roller coaster. Because if I don't go on a roller coaster, my chances of that happening are absolutely zero. So,
yeah, you don't want a Fabio.
Right. Yeah, especially not Fabio. I don't want a seagull in the face, no matter what.
It was a goose.
Was it a goose? Oh.
Wasn't it a goose? I thought it was a goose, not a seagull. It was a huge freaking goose.
Man, if it's a goose, I'm surprised he's alive. Those things are nasty.
Could you think about a goose the size of a turkey slamming face first and breaking your nose?
Take your head right off. I would think,
Well, that's the crazy thing, when we talk about this kind of stuff and when we look at it, it's no differently than, for me anyway.
Yeah.
When I look at, when you ask me, like, let's use for example, does it depend? And I said, yes, it depends. Like, let's use, for example, if someone's got to die and I know one person's like, let's use this analogy, and you've used it inadvertently without even thinking about it. If it's your life to go into a burning house to rescue a kid, are you going to do that, or are you going to let the kid die in the house fire? So,
I'm going.
The way I look at it is, you know what? I've lived to be in my 40s.
Right.
If I can save an 8-year-old, look at how much more time they've got than I've got.
Yeah. I think that's how I look at it.
Not
too.
that long ago.
It's a numbers game.
Not that long ago. It really is a numbers game. 100%. And anyone that says it's not, you probably should check yourself at the door.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I guess kind of the point that I was getting at is through all these experiments we just did on ourselves and our different views on stuff, let's pretend you and I are the government and we've got to come to a consensus. We 100% believe in our hearts of hearts. We've got all the evidence. We 100% believe that the Nazis are going to be able to open a rift, get a mega weapon that could destroy the whole world. Billions of people will die. And they want us to vote. Will we take scientists that are going to cruelize people in a lab, kill people to save 3 billion people, whatever billion people? Like, raise your hand if you're going to let it happen to save those people. Like, I'm going to. So are we evil though? I don't think so.
It goes back to The Walking Dead and the Negan conversation.
Yeah.
It's all based on the perspective that you're sitting on.
Right. So if you're a conspiracy theorist who thinks that the government's evil, then you can believe that this happened. If you're someone who believes that the government's essentially good, you should believe that this can happen because they firmly believe they could save 3 billion lives.
Sounds legit to me.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Just kidding.
Oh man, that's savage. That's savage.
See,
right there.
I love these stories because we get into real theoretical conversations. Like,
Which coincidentally, I looked it up while we was talking. They may lie, cheat, and steal, but they may be friendly, smart, basically unremarkable. In other words, impossible to pick out of a crowd. Although severe psychopaths affects about 1% of people, some research suggests that close to 30% of us have some level of psychopathic traits.
It's kind of scary if you think about it.
You walk into a room of 10 people, 3 of them are psychopaths. That being said, on the top of my mind, I can think of 3. Just that I know. Yeah,
but the other thing to think about too is on top of these studies, most psychopaths, even though they're a small percentage of people, or maybe the 30%, most go their whole lives without doing anything wrong.
For sure.
So
for sure, 100%.
So if you're not scared now, no need to get scared.
Think about it, though. The tops of those, the top of line in business, a lot of them got there because they got those psychopathic traits.
It attracts them. That's what they want in life. They want the power.
Right.
Yep. Same with government.
And they'll do anything to get it.
Government's just a big business, in my opinion.
That is true. It is 100%.
Yep. So now we've established that this could happen and almost anyone would let it happen.
Correct.
Are you ready to hear a little bit more?
You doggone right I am.
Right. Roll the tape.
An odd discovery. Fast forward to 1971. World War II is long over. The Montauk Project had been in operation in perfect secrecy for decades and would remain so for decades more. A young Preston Nichols had completed a degree in electrical engineering and became a specialist in electromagnetic phenomena. This allowed him to secure a respectable position at a well-known defense contractor on Long Island. Although he was not extraordinarily interested in the paranormal at that time, he had obtained a grant to study mental telepathy and to determine whether or not it existed. In Nichols' own words, "I sought to disprove it, but I was surprised to find out that it did in fact exist. I began my research and found out that telepathic communication operated on principles that are strikingly similar to that of radio waves." He discovered these telepathic waves, as he called them, functioned very similar to radio waves, but not quite. He had discovered a whole new electromagnetic function that was not in any textbooks. Nichols was very excited at his breakthrough. He continued to research and collaborated with different psychics to test and monitor their various responses. In 1974, he noticed a peculiar phenomena that was common to all of the psychics that he had worked with. Every day at the same hour, their minds would be jammed. They couldn't think effectively. Suspecting that the interference was caused by an electronic signal, he used his radio equipment and attempted to discover what happened on the airwaves at the times the psychics were non-functional. Whenever a 410-420 megahertz cycle appeared on the air, they were jammed. When the 410-420 megahertz cycle was off, the psychics would open back up after about 20 minutes. He then decided to trace the signal. Placing a modified TV antenna on the roof of his car, he used a VHF receiver and set out looking for the source of it, originally thinking it was an accidental broadcast. The trail led him to Montauk Point and, at the time heavily guarded, Camp Hero. Expectedly, no one would speak to him.
Could you write a better way that this would be discovered?
No. Though I found it interesting. They talked about something that I just recently learned, which remote viewers that kind of fall all into the same kind of category to a degree.
Yeah.
Do you know how the government figures out if you can remote view?
I have no idea.
I just learned this. So what they, at least this is what they did.
Yeah, let's do the
Or
allegedly.
This is what allegedly. So supposedly they would bring a group of people in, and then they would have a group of people that would go to a preset, predestined destination. And the way that they would do it is, let's say there were 6 people coming in, there would be 6 different people that would be going to separate locations wherever they are. All the coordinates for different things was randomized. And then on top of that, they would roll dice.
Okay.
And depending on where the dice fell, it chose whatever envelope that this person would then go to.
Oh, this is interesting.
What they would do is, once they were at that location, they would have the remote viewer first off, supposedly, I didn't know any of this. They let them meditate first.
Okay.
So that they can clear their brain.
Yeah.
And then they've got another guy that would sit in the room with them, and they would have the guy describe, or the whoever it is, male, female, doesn't matter. The other person would describe whatever they were seeing based on that person's location with no idea where they're at.
Okay.
After they were done, and I think they would do it for like 15 minutes, the person that was writing down all the info would then go to a board that had different scenario, or not different scenarios, but different types of settings.
Right.
And they would take their notes and look and determine, based on all the different pictures, which one fit. They would then attach that, and then they would walk away, and no one would know until the person that would come to confirm what it was. So there was multiple variables. The first one is, it was a randomized coordinates. The randomized coordinates was put into an envelope that then dice was rolled, and they selected based on whatever the dice did. Then the person that was remote viewing would talk to another person that was not attached to the project.
Right.
That would then write the info and then have to look on a board to determine based on what it was. And if it was within a certain percentage of closeness, that person was considered a remote viewer.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
super interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd never heard that before.
I didn't until last week. It was the first time that I'd ever heard
If
that.
you could do that a couple times, I think you'd have to believe that the person was doing it. I think you'd kind of have to come to that.
I mean, how else? With that level of randomization,
Yeah.
like, it'd be one thing is if you found out what the location
Right.
was ahead of time. Let's just say you overheard
Yeah.
something. To then walk into a room and go, well, clearly it's that picture.
Yeah.
That's it. But the fact that a randomized person that, again, had no affiliation was writing notes
Right.
down, they had to go select it based on what you said. That's a lot of
That
randoms.
is, that's like a supernatural chance, or it's supernatural. Like, you know, it's
correct. The world of paranormal.
Yeah.
It's vast.
Yeah, that's something. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've covered much psychic stuff or remote viewing or anything like that. But that's an interesting topic.
We've not. It is super interesting. There's a lot of great stories around it too.
Earlier in my life, I spent a lot of time around people who thought they were psychics.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. When I first went off to university, I had roommates that their job was being tarot card readers. That's how they paid their bills and stuff. And
they believed it?
I think one of them didn't really, but the other one definitely did. And honestly, I thought they might have been, at least that one might have been a little delusional. But that being said, I think that there's a strong possibility some people can do that.
I mean, that's how John Edwards started out.
Yeah. I mean, it's not common. Like, if you just looked up psychics on the internet, you'd think it's like, you know, 1 in every 5 people. But
correct.
If it is real, I'd say it would be like 1 in 500,000 or something like that. Really small.
Probably.
Is what I guess.
Like when you think of psychic mediums or clairvoyants, like there's only even a few names that pop into my head now. John Edwards, Tyler, the psychic, I forget what his last name is. I mean, those are the only 2 I can think of off the top of my head that's like world famous.
Well, I mean, there was Miss Cleo, if you remember her.
Yeah, I feel like she was fake.
She was fake.
So
she was definitely fake. And there was the other one. It was
oh, child. Call Miss Cleo tonight.
Yeah, on TV, on like commercials. But there was another lady that did it too. You remember her? She was a blonde lady.
Oh, are you talking about the I forgot about her. Sylvia Brown. Is that her name?
Yeah, Sylvia Brown. Yeah.
Oh, there's the other lady from New York. What's her name?
Is that the Long Island psychic lady or whatever?
Yes, Long Island. What's her name? Shoot.
I don't know a lot about her. I know she had a popular TV show at one time.
She did. Yeah. She was accurate a lot though. But like if you listen to Tyler, that's a kid that does he sits there with his paper and he's like scratches. Yeah. I've always been super fascinated, and the only reason I've been super fascinated is they did a science and medical thing on him. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. Actually, I'm not familiar
Dr.
with
Drew,
him even. So
Tyler?
Yeah.
He's the celebrity psychic.
Okay.
He's got a TV show. Tyler Henry.
Okay.
I think is his name. But what he does is he doesn't supposedly, I don't know if any of this is true, but I think it's true. I personally think it's true. But there'll be skeptics out there be like, man, it's all fake. Anyway, supposedly he doesn't know what celebrity's house he's going to. And when he gets there, he then reads for them. But here's what's crazy. He did Alan Thicke?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did a psychic reading for him 3 months before he died.
Oh, really?
And it was televised, the psychic reading. And he was Tyler sitting there, and what he does is he talks, and then he just takes a pen and he scratches on this paper. And when he does that, he says what happens is it takes him to a different mindset. It's his way of zoning in.
Is it any relation to automatic writing, or is this just a focus for him?
It's a focus.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And at the end, he gives them the piece of paper where he was just scribbling. But what he did was he told Alan Thicke, he goes, "Do you have any heart conditions in your family?" And Alan Thicke's like, "No, not really." And he goes, "You're good. You've been checked." And he goes, "Yeah, man, I'm good, man." He goes, maybe just check it out.
Right.
Just, And Alan Thicke jokingly said, "I sure will, Dr. Tyler." He didn't believe in any of this. died 3 months later of a heart condition.
That's sad.
And the worst part is Tyler then went to his significant other
Right.
after, and he said Alan Thicke came back to him. And here's what's crazy.
Mhm.
He used to say something along the lines of but Tyler's sitting there and he's talking to her. And of course, there's always that question of, is it legit or not? And Tyler goes, I don't know why I'm saying this or why he's showing me this, but he's talking about eggs. And she just starts looking. You can start seeing the tears forming in her eyes. And he goes, something about eggs, sunny side up. And she starts kind of crying a little bit. And he goes, can you explain, because I don't understand the eggs?
Right.
And she goes, every single time something bad would happen, he'd always say the sun will come up tomorrow. Sunny side up, the sun will come back. The sun will come up tomorrow.
Okay.
But then he was able to dig into like more things. But
Yeah.
think about it. Like if you're trying to fake for someone,
Right.
are you going to think of, hey, they're showing me cracked eggs
Yeah.
in a skillet. Does that make sense? Sunny side up. Like that's not, I would think most people that's faking it would say something along the lines of, he's telling me that you have a ring.
Right.
Do you have a ring?
Yeah.
Does it have a blue stone in it? You have a blue stoned ring. Like
Right.
that's how I would do it.
Yeah. And
Because
that's
the
like cold
probability is,
reading.
did he buy a ring? Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's like freaking eggs, like who would bring up eggs?
Yeah. The only thing that makes
But
me
it
like
was the symbolization.
about that is like I know a bit about cold reading, and a lot of times if you're cold reading for someone, they're gonna make the connection, and you could say something
for
that
sure,
is like
yeah.
really tangential. Like I could have said he's showing me something like a yellow crayon. Does that mean anything to you? Oh, yellow sunrise. The sun's gonna come out.
Yeah.
People really want to make that
I
connection.
see where you come from.
But I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
for
not
sure.
like. I mean, the heart thing was enough to win me over.
There's something to that. It's kind of like John Edwards. A lot of people give John Edwards a hard time.
Yeah.
And he's got probably the best South Park episode ever.
I don't think I've seen it, but I will.
Where he was called like the biggest douchebag of the universe or something. Like that was his character in the show,
Yeah.
was the biggest douchebag in the entire universe. Anyway, it's funny because like he'll sit there and like you can see him. It's almost like he focuses in.
Right.
And then he's able to do it. But with Tyler, Dr. Drew, do you know who Dr. Drew is?
Yeah.
He was with him when Tyler was reading Steve-O. And what they did was they put that mask thing
Right,
on
right.
with all the electrodes.
Yeah.
And he's like, just do what it is that you do. So Tyler's sitting there. Whenever he was going like this with the paper and the scribbling, part of his brain shut off.
Oh.
And the part of his brain that turned on was the same part that you go into when you're dreaming.
Now that's interesting.
And it was lighting up parts of his brain that's impossible to light
Yeah.
up when you're awake. And then when he would start kind of going back into it, his brain would go back to normal, and then he would have his conversation. And then when he would go back, his brain would shut back down and he'd start scribbling again.
Okay.
And they saw this on the electrodes, and Tyler didn't know. He didn't find out until after it was all done.
Right.
And Dr. Drew said, we had some anomalies, some things that was kind of weird. Here's what we came up with. And Tyler's like, wow, like that's,
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that, but that's interesting.
That is cool.
But it makes me think,
Mhm.
when we dream, we don't know what's going
Right.
on. Who's to say, this is purely speculation on my part. I don't know what I'm talking
Right.
about. Shocker. Who's to say when we dream, we're not necessarily in our mind, but we don't go into a different dimension?
You're probably not going to be expecting me to say this, but this is one thing that you're talking about that I already 100% believe that this happens. I don't think it's all the time, but I think it happens.
I think that there's almost like a veil, kind of like we talk about the veil all the time. And I feel like we can itch over to that veil, because here's what's interesting. And most
Right.
people don't know this. When you go to sleep and you go into REM, that's the rapid eye movement phase.
Yeah.
Do you know what turns on in your brain?
What?
The the part of your brain that moves your limbs.
Interesting.
Yes.
This probably
So
has an effect
there
on
is-
sleep paralysis too.
Well, what they're saying is there's no reason for your brain to activate that part
Mhm.
when you're sleeping unless you're truly moving around. So when you're dreaming, who's to say that it's not, your brain's not hardwired? You're in a different dimension. It turns that on, and now you're able to move in that dimension,
Interesting.
which makes me think people that sleepwalks,
Mhm.
what if that veil, if you're on both sides and now you're reenacting, because a lot of times they're able to move around a house knowing where everything's at. Who's to say they're not in a different dimension in a different time doing what they see, which is the same equivalent as a ghost that may still be a residual energy doing the same thing. They can see, but they can't get on the other side.
I think that you might be psychic. Because you've put forth a theory
Mhm.
that's going to come into play a little later in the story.
In this story?
And I feel it's pretty random that you
Wow.
told this to me, which makes me suspicious that you're a psychic or maybe a witch.
Maybe I'm a doggone clairvoyant. Listen,
Maybe.
today only, 1995. We're opening up the phone lines. You're going to see the number pop up right here on the screen. Listen, we've only got so many slots open. You're going to want to join in today. Come on down to Bert's readings. Woo, child.
You've been ready for this for ages, I can tell. I can tell.
I have. Listen, I can feel it. Does the number 2 mean anything to you guys out there? If 2 means something to you, call us today. $19.95 a minute. I've been waiting for this my
Wow.
whole life, Nick. I knew
This is a
day would come.
spin-off. New show starting up soon.
Oh, man.
But
This is interesting.
yeah,
So they talk about dreaming.
it's more about
Was there dreamings in
it's
this
more
thing?
about
Is that what the upside
splitting
down
in
is?
two realities and being part in each.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got okay, like kind of like the upside down.
Yeah.
I got you. I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
where you can
I got
exist
you.
in both.
Oh, you know what? I never thought about this. In I guess technically that did happen in Stranger Things also.
Yeah.
Because like their body would still be there, but Vecna would have them in a
Right.
different area.
Exactly.
It was the
Exactly.
same place, but a different dimension.
Yeah, Vecna was in both, sort of like a physical in one and a
Yes.
I don't know, astral body in the other, to for lack of better terms.
Yes.
So
Which I know you played this in Dead by Daylight.
Mhm.
They used to have the Hawkins map.
yep, of course. Yeah.
And it was the same map, but it almost felt like it was in the upside down. Is
Mhm.
almost what it felt like. It had a lot of upside down like features.
Yeah. And
It's crazy.
yeah, so you predicted what's coming up a little later. It's not even in the next segment, so you did a good psychic job.
It was
there.
not coincidence either. I'm really psychic.
He's
Listen,
really psychic.
1995.
You heard it here first.
1995 a
Third
minute.
podcast starting soon. No, just kidding.
Bert's
Yeah.
readings. Join today.
Bert's Believers is what your fans will be called.
Oh man, that's such a great
Yeah,
catchphrase.
exactly. But yeah,
man.
so all this stuff that happens with the mind, you mentioned the cap that they put on people that can read their electrical signals. We've got electromagnetic things going on all the time. We talk sometimes about EMF detectors detecting high electromagnetic fields can affect our brains, right?
Mhm.
Radio
Yes.
waves have an effect, like electromagnetic waves, and that's what he was detecting and was able to track down with his car. And he said this certain signal that they were broadcasting at the same time every day, basically, as long as that signal was on, psychics were regular people, couldn't think straight, couldn't do any of their psychic work. And as soon as it went off, 20 minutes after, they recovered and were able to do it again. So every day this was happening. And I'd be interested if we've got any psychic listeners or, clairvoyants, clairaudient people, remote viewers, automatic writers. If you find there's a certain time of day where your powers don't work right, let us know. I want to compare what everyone's saying. Because
There's over 2,000 of you
right,
now.
this
One of you gotta be
tower
psychic.
is still guarded to this day. So it could still be broadcasting.
What?
Yeah.
And where's this located at?
This is Montauk Point, Camp Hero. Part of it's abandoned, but part of it's still guarded.
But where's it at? What where's it located at?
I think it's somewhere around New York.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I want to know, is it still broadcasting? Do some of you find it affects you at a certain time every day?
Out of curiosity,
Mhm.
is it near a national forest?
It is. Part of it is, I don't know if it was always that way, but it's part of the abandoned thing. It's like a preserve now. Yeah.
Isn't
that interesting? Also, do you remember the first part of the second narration? They found that this particular area was very abnormally good for this type of experiment. So something pre-existed there before they deemed it a national preservation or whatever.
Bet I could guess.
Can you?
We've not said what it is yet?
No.
I bet I could guess.
You want to guess?
I'm going to guess some things. Don't tell me if
Okay.
I'm right. I'm going
All
to
right.
guess. Gemstones? Crystals? Water aquifers? Gold? I'm really guessing crystal. There has to be something crystal there. And I'm going to explain why real quick.
Okay.
Then we can move on.
Yep.
I won't take long on this, I promise.
All right.
Every pyramid that's ever been found
Mhm.
has water aquifers below them.
Really? Interesting.
The caps of every single pyramid used to be gold.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two lines that goes out of every single pyramids that have two separate chemicals that's in every single one.
Oh, really?
Now, yeah. I think science at this point can say definitively, they may not like admitting to it, there's a higher likelihood that a pyramid is a power plant or some type of power conduit versus a crypt that would be used to store bodies and goods.
Interesting.
I think science can't deny it because they've not really found in pyramids bodies. That's not really what they're typically used for. But every single one of them water. So as water comes up and it starts going to the bottom of the pyramid, the theory is it would cause a reaction that then would go up into that golden part of the pyramid to basically cause free energy in the air.
It's interesting because
But like
gold connectors and wires and stuff, like that's something we still kind of do today.
Yes. Well, there's an entire story about the Anunnaki and stuff like that and how they went to war. And before they went to war, if you look at every pyramid, they're square on the top. They're not a perfect point anymore because that gold's missing. So, interesting story. But I think crystal, because I believe that crystal, the reason I think crystal holds so much power is because, in my opinion, crystal is some form of a living thing.
Right.
Because crystal can grow, can take on water. It has cellular to it. There's something to that. What that is, I don't know. Because when you look, a lot of UFO and a lot of ghost things happen when there's high concentrations of water, gems, crystal, gold. And there's almost always, quote unquote, some form of a portal. Assumed
Right,
portal.
right.
Obviously, we can't see it, but
Alleged again.
I'm assuming. Alleged.
All right.
Alleged.
So what I will tell you, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because we don't actually know specifically what caused this point to be chosen. It only was told that it was tested to be particularly conductive to this type of experiment. But there's definitely water. It's right on the coast.
Sure. Yeah.
It's in sort of like a hilly region, so there could be crystals and stuff like that. But this is how they determine what places are going to be. In our theory, this is how they determine what places are going to be national parks. We don't know what criteria they're using, so we can't say. But that theory's good.
Interesting. Well, I'm ready to hear the next part.
Yeah, we're really getting into it. We haven't even talked about anything weird happening yet, except the psychics.
No. Yeah, the psychic thing, that's kind of dope, though. I like going into that kind of stuff. Just because I find it fascinating. Because even that's biblical too.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. It was many years that this place remained an absolute secret. There was some rumors and stuff like that, but it was still years after this before anything came to light. So what we just listened to was the catalyst for this huge secret that a lot of people knew about to come to light. So if you think that people can't keep secrets, like groups of people can't keep secrets, they can.
Yeah, they must have. Because this was not a big story for the most part.
No, not till later. Not till quite a bit later. And there's a part you're going to hear that you might have heard of, and that sort of echoed back and brought more people into this. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm getting too excited for the story.
Nick's like,
yeah,
Nick, you got to calm down.
Yeah,
Nick,
I got to calm down. I got to calm down. So we'll let you listen further.
Welcome, Bert believers, to the Psychic Hotline. Listen, I can tell you your future. Do you want to know what your future is? It's going to be part 2 of this bad boy. Listen, we can't fit it all into part 1. Listen, it is what it is. And listen, I probably could have told you this with my psychic clairvoyance. And luckily, in the little screen right now, what you're going to see my Cash App. Okay? Because the first minute's already here. You can't hang up. You got to pay for the first moment, even if it's 2 seconds.
Only fair.
It's not my fault. You're here.
It's only fair.
It's only fair. $19.95. Okay, and it's going to be to Cash App. Deceptive. Don't send
yeah, don't do that. That's not us.
That's not us. Whatever you do, don't send it there. Obviously, man, we covered a lot of crazy stuff in part 1, and the nutty, as we like to say, the nutty cuckoo thing about part 2, because we've already done it. We came up with some crazy concepts and ideas.
It's wild. It is wild.
The best part is, unlike the national parks where we literally came up with it after the podcast was over, we did this one literally during the podcast.
Yeah, that's a way better way to do it, by the way.
Multiple times, too. I feel like we didn't hammer in on like one thing, or I don't even know how many things we hammered in on. But I feel like we came up with so many hypotheses, concepts, and ideas. It's crazy. Yeah,
it's going to be up to you all to sort it out.
Yes. Because let me tell you, in part 2, if you listen to this far into part 1, congratulations. That is a lot of info. But part 2, I feel like you're going to do yourself an injustice by not listening to part 2.
Yeah.
I usually don't say you should definitely come back and hear part 2. You should really come back and hear part 2. I'm really curious of what people's going to say on this. This may be my favorite episode.
We took a journey I wasn't expecting.
Say that very often.
Really, I was not expecting this,
which is awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it again myself because I feel like it was happening so fast. I need to.
So fast.
Yeah.
The only thing I got to get better at is I get these flat like thought processes and then I just pause. And I'm probably going to have to cut some. There's going to be some weird cuts in this episode. Because I know there's times where I'm probably like there for 30 seconds just staring off.
It feels like that to you, but it's not really that bad.
Man, it feels like I'm in there forever. And then I go, wait a second, I'm in a podcast. I got to talk. Sorry. But yeah, definitely want to check out part 2. Thank you for everyone that came to part 1. Also, wherever you're listening to our podcast, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best things you can do. in our lives.
Yeah, I like the comment part.
But until we comments, actually my favorite part too. I look forward whenever I see a comment, especially if it's like well thought out. I'm like, man, that's kind of dope. But until we see y'all in part 2, which is coming up next week, I know I'm going to see y'all. Goodbye.
See you then.